Welcome to Grit and Gravitas with Ann and Annie, bringing you savvy, spirited stories of success. We're excited to deliver 30 minutes of inspiration, impact, and goodness. We'll be bringing you guests and friends from around the country who have very special work and personal journeys. I'm Ann Deeter Gallaher, your co-host with Annie Carnathan, and this is Grit and Gravitas. Let's go! Grit and Gravitas podcast studio. Here we are, Annie Carnathan. Again, my husband laughs at me when I say this. It's the highlight of my work week. Welcome.
Right there with you, girl. There's not even a close second. It's just such a labor of love. I think we get better chemistry. We get deeper. We get more meaningful. Our story is evolving, and hopefully we're taking a lot of people along on our journey.
Amen. We're coming off the heels of Holly Love being an in-studio guest, and we commented in that episode the sense of energy and community and connection with an in-person interview guest. Because we've had the past 4, I believe, were remote guests, which were awesome and incredible, and they live in different faraway states, if you would.
Much more challenging for me. I'm EQ. Right. I'm very, very people-centric. I think they tell a story, whether they're speaking or not, in very, very many ways and layers.
The eyes tell a story because you light up when you talk about certain things. So I'm watching that. So, yes.
And whether there's engagement and whether there's a spark, right? To extend a thought, to sort of go to the next thought. But that led us to in person and a return to the office. And where is universal media in that world, and how do I see that?
Because you're in a big new chapter.
We're in a big new chapter, brand new office space.
Yay, congrats.
Thank you.
Is it this week
you were this week.
In? Okay.
Yes. So you walk in Monday morning and things are in your office, but not necessarily where they're supposed to be. And you would not recognize sort of the space from where we were to where we are. So it's half the size. Wow. Because we've determined that we're not going to mandate fully coming back 5 days a week.
Okay, so let me stop you there. Why did you decide that? As the CEO, what led you to that decision to lease half the size of your space and give the employees those options?
It was interesting. That was a journey also. So we have land and we're going to build. Mm-hmm. So during COVID, that became an enormous challenge from a supply chain, from an expense standpoint. So if the building would roughly be 3 times what it would cost to build it prior to COVID, that's not a savvy business decision.
Right.
Meanwhile, the lease where we are was up, and we found essentially space to sublease while that person's business isn't returning full time. So it's an interim step.
Okay.
A 3-year lease. In 2 years, we'll decide if we're going to build. We'll decide if we'll buy a building and renovate that.
Right.
We'll decide what's next with another year to do that. So it's an interim step. And so what it really allowed us to do was experiment with the layout, with the size, with listening to our employees. And I'll be the first to say I like in person, as we started this off, I like people to look a certain way, dress-wise. I think professionalism is paramount. However, what's even more paramount than that is the performance and the success of the company now over 2 years since we've been together. And that is irrefutable. And so tremendously have evolved my thinking.
Good. Well, okay, business vitamin for C-level executive is you have to be open to learning new things and changing your business course when data that you've observed gives you a reason to do something different. And you're able to change instead of going on the same old business model if it no longer made sense or didn't make sense to your employees.
Yes. And there's a sample size, and I have to listen, and I have to observe, and I have to have eyes to see that a plethora of employees have been hired during COVID who still haven't even met other employees.
Right.
How the age of the employee being hired because of the digital revolution and their native digital upbringing, right, has changed the way they think. And that's not a blanket statement. I just think that technology has accelerated and forced whatever work we're doing to be as productive remotely.
So when I was in the same building with you and Universal a couple years ago, the demographic of your workforce was probably at that time, I would say like 40 and up, 40.
Mid to late 50.
Okay, so now I know your demographic is far different because your business model is different. And now what is it, like 25 to 40
to 30
is your...
Yeah, it's more, there's a couple people at the top.
I'm looking at one.
Skew
I'm
that.
looking at one.
Yeah, for sure. And that, I think, is a really healthy mix of experience, of people skills, of that human interaction, because, I fully believe that people work with people and they buy things from people and they're loyal to people. They're not loyal to video calls. They're not loyal to email and text and Lord knows what else I'm leaving out. Right. And for me to sit here and say, I'm going to legislate, the whole, like the Wall Street Journal's had about 3 articles on what is appropriate dress back. And then they'll have 5 leaders who have 5 completely different views of what that should be. So you're about the top up, that has to be professional. Belt down, well, that could be pajamas, that could be flip-flops, that could be fuzzy slippers. Well, oh no, right? But what does it mean to still have the pulse, the personality, the culture of a company? And that's not about how we dress. It's essentially not about where we are. It's about the work and the professionalism and the response of that. And there have been weddings during COVID. There have been babies born during COVID, sometimes multiple babies to a family. That's how long the disruption of COVID has prolonged the disruption.
Yeah.
And there is no easy answer, quote unquote, coming back. What does that even mean? Coming back. So already just this week and as several days, when someone's sitting in an open area and they're having a video call, well, clearly that's 2 people that you're hearing every word.
Right.
When there's more than one person, you might only be hearing 50% of the conversation, but now you're hearing multiple conversations. There's an adjustment. Just the space.
Right.
And, 1 or 2 offices that when you do have to have a call that has to be private or personal, there's that way to do that, right?
And I think different, so I have a client, she's phenomenal. She and her whole team are phenomenal. They are in the management consulting space, and DEI space is one of their lines of service. Incredibly
DEI?
accomplished, diversity, equity, inclusion.
Okay.
So they do trainings for agencies in the federal government, state government, local.
Highly specialized service.
And corporate. But interesting because we learn along with our clients every time we're pitching and creating news angles. My point in what you've just illustrated, one of the largest diversity challenges is the different ages in the workplace. So it is how your 22-year-old recent grad, wicked smart techno, wizard is communicating with the 62-year-old. that wasn't in the office and that made it even more difficult? Like, are they texting for communication? And where's the client in this entire relationship? Who's communicating with the client here? The 20-something communicates totally differently than the 60-something. The 40-something communicates totally different than either of those generations. So interesting, as you're bringing them back into the workplace, each one's probably going to adjust differently to that. And that maybe the 60-year-old is excited to get back, or the 50-year-old said, I want to get back with my people. Because there's a lot of business conversation that happens in a hallway or grabbing a cup of coffee at the office that isn't necessarily happening in the Zoom or the Microsoft Teams chat room.
There's an organic part to that chemistry that allows me to care for someone who speaks about something that isn't scheduled, or isn't part of an agenda. And how could I know what I don't know? And how can I care about what I don't know? The flip side of that is, without question, the office is way more distracting. If I'm in it, it's more distracting. Because I'm loud.
You mean more people are coming to you, they see you, they're going to pop in?
Well, they're going to hear me. I'm going to come over and I'm going to say, how are you? And what's been... I want that plug-in. I want that connection. I want that sense of a person. And I think that, part of our podcast is to help women in business. And for a 22-year-old, 21-year-old digital native has communicated since they knew what communication was on their phone, on their little handheld computer. But at what point do you need to have a conversation?
Yeah.
At what point do we have to use words? And at what point is something that has to be translated from me, from my heart, where I'm looking at you and you're sensing and feeling what I am discussing with you? And Lord knows, if we're a service industry and a service business, which we are, how in the world is a client going to understand the essence of who we are? I mean, we're a media agency. Everybody, right. I mean, any media agency, it's the same thing, right? It's table stakes. There's just like, here's our capabilities, but that's not who we are. It's what we do, but it's not who we are. You have to get communication, especially client facing, right? Can happen. It's people prospecting me, regardless of what it is. Could be cleaning services, IT, software, sales leads, you name it, and it's a computer.
Right.
It's not a person asking me anything. And so there's a lack of that personalization. Not that I lament, but I want to have a conversation.
Well, I think it's harder to instill your culture. And even in my small team, we have a culture. You have a culture. Our mutual clients and partners that we work with, they spend a lot of money and a lot of time creating principles that they believe in. It's hard to do. So for your team that was hired during the pandemic, they haven't had the opportunity to see that played out in the workplace. What does Annie, how does my CEO role model the principles of what we stand for? And you're the brand ambassador for the company. How will they know if they haven't seen you in action, or Mark Jones or any of them model what a good business model or good work example is at Universal? They don't know how to do that then out in the public either.
How do you carry yourself?
Yeah.
What kind of pride and confidence are you exuding? Because what we think or what we feel or however we want to, execute communication, we are the company.
Right.
And it's impossible to mentor that, to coach that. And it feels to me like when I want to just have a, hi, Ann, how are you? How are things? It's like, well, yeah, what? Like, do you have an agenda? Like, what?
Yeah.
Can't I just be calm to see how you are? Right? Well, I can't do that with 60 people, but I really want that sort of intangible part of what makes us special to come alive and to be reinforced.
Right.
And that's a difficult aspect to that. But I don't think either that you can legislate everyone has to be there 2 days a week, because people have leaked out.
That was my next question,
Right?
So that's a good point, leaked out. What is the roll in, if you would? How are you getting them back? And so you are open. There's malleability there. Not everybody has to be in 5 days a week. How did you work that?
So I would like my department heads, I mean my executive leadership team to essentially model that to the best benefit
Of being in the office.
in the office. So is it once a quarter if someone's 5 hours away? Is it twice a week if they live a mile away? Well, that's not really fair, right? Because
You mean twice a week coming in? Or
because they're close and they can.
Right.
Well,
Right.
how does it matter to them, more so than someone who's 5 hours away?
Right.
Right. The work matters and the performance matters. And that's what I can't legislate or argue with. I mean, we have had stunning, breathtaking performance
Great.
in the time we've been, and now we're
Right.
coming back to something half the size, to an open format, just completely different. And that may not be right.
So you don't have cubicles or offices?
We
Is that
have
what you mean?
we do have cubes, but it's more of a collaborative,
Okay. Good.
open space, which is exactly what we are. We have to be collaborative. But what would that look like? Like, are there, like, do too many people want to come in and we don't have space? Is it still too much space?
Right.
So I think the next 2 to 3 years is going to allow us
You'll explore
to
that.
incubate
Yeah.
that, right? And to say, no, we have to build almost, in my opinion, a community type feeling where people want to come,
Oh, totally.
where they go,
And that goes back to your culture. And that, I told you earlier, this morning I spoke to 2 classes at Messiah University. So my brother-in-law, it's his last semester as a professor, and he often brings me and a former client of mine in who was a trustee at the university. And we just talk about what business expects of the graduates. Like, what are the kind of skills they should be learning and working on, as they come out. And they've been in there for 2 years in a whole different world. So the workplace has changed. Academics, things that if you looked at school districts, they would never have raised, the unions would never have said, yes, we want everyone to go remote if it weren't for a pandemic. There was every roadblock of why we can't educate this way. We have to do it this way. And all of a sudden, oh, well, we can. We're pretty darn resilient when it comes down to it. And we can use technology for our benefit and try to keep everybody, not falling through the cracks. So it was interesting talking to these students about what their expectation was coming into the workplace. And I think there might be a challenge with them coming in and dressing the part. It's not like there's no more suit and ties. I don't even know. I haven't seen one of those for a while. Even in the financial industry, they're not, the bankers aren't wearing a suit and tie for the large part. But understanding that there are still rules of engagement in business, how you present yourself, how you dress, how you comport, the language you use. And those are learned behaviors, I think, by being in a business culture where you learn what's the expectation. What is this company all about? And I asked the kids, they all want to work with purpose. They want to work for a company that believes in something, that makes a difference, not just selling something or coming in and doing an 8 to 5 job. They want to spend their time with something that matters. And I think that's where the culture, as you bring everybody back in, they start to see again, oh, this is why together we are just so incredible.
We are better together. Yeah. And the sum of all of us far outweighs any one skill set or expertise that we absolutely have to fully integrate and collaborate.
Yeah.
That's only going to happen through communication. And I'll tell you, I mean, a lot of video interviews, and now I say, if it's someone within the region or local,
come.
Would you prefer to meet video or in person? Tells me a lot, right?
So what are you finding? Are more of them coming in? Do they see that importance, or are they saying, no, I'm just going?
It really depends on the location, where they are in the interview process. Okay. But I will also say, and I make no apologies for this, if someone is going to show up in a suit, coat, and a tie, hubba hubba. I think that I would much rather see that than wondering if I'm overdressed, underdressed.
Right.
And I hate that guessing game, and I would rather imagine someone caring that much about it, right? Casual is going to be casual forever.
Right.
And the last time I looked, you're trying to win a job that right now, great resignation and all, quote unquote.
Yeah.
There is a ferocious competition for positions that are open. Mm-hmm. And that to me models in part how much they covet or desire the job.
Well, and you said earlier, dress, which is an adage, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. So even, dress prepared to say yes when your employer, when everybody comes, you bring them all back in and you start to see with your own eyes, like, well, that person is really over delivering. And I think they're ready for the next step. And you can see how they comport themselves, what they come to work dressed as or prepared to do. And all those little things, create their story.
Yeah, it's not a formal, right? It's not black tie optional.
Right.
But I do think it's an important statement that, that I took the time, and then obviously how they've prepared for the interview. What preparation did they do for that? And so I think as what technology's also done, Ann, is there's this position open, and I'll sit here today, and for the next 2 hours, I'll just submit my resume to, these 40 things. Well, wait a minute. What? So, a job description, maybe I'm like going down a rabbit hole, not shocking there. But if a job has a description, I'm going to say, this is Annie Carnathan, and here's all the ways that I'm going to fit and check every single one of those boxes. I'm going to tailor my skill set directly to that job opening and then enhance. Well, what am I doing? I'm being a salesman, right? I mean, isn't an interview a sales job? Whether we don't call it that. Oh, no, I'm not a salesman. No, I don't want to sell it. But you definitely are. Mm-hmm. And so again, does that, does how people dress disqualify them? No, because look, I'll be the first to say in the office, didn't used to like jeans. No. You bring a partner through and don't look there. Well, they're but that's absolutely sort of gotten more casual. I'm not fighting that. Right. And I think though that situational awareness is really important.
Good.
Both in how you prepare and not in sort of like, hey, do you think I'd be a good fit for this job? Here's why. And let me double down on not just the why for me, but here's how it's going to benefit you.
Well, and that was one of the statements I left the students with this morning, is to not only work on their soft skills, but to know their value. So when you have an employee, or I do, that's coming to us for a raise or to negotiate, you better present your value. How did you make our business stronger, better, more sustainable, more revenue? It isn't because their family expanded and that's why they get the raise. The raise is, what was your performance and what value did you add? And the sooner college students learn what is their value. I mean, each of us is so unique. That's a value. So understand, do a little digging and research into ourselves and find out what do I have to offer Universal Media or Deeter Gallaher Group that nobody else does.
And be comfortable talking about money. I'm just going to tell everyone right now, whether it's your first job, your fifth job.
Women are notoriously not great at that. We don't love to do that.
But we've been taught from a really, really early age, what don't we talk about?
Right.
We don't talk about money. And for me, if I say to someone in a very, very entrepreneurial-minded company, and with fresh eyes, tell me what you may add that I'm not thinking about that's going to benefit Universal Media. Because I don't know you. Mm-hmm. You don't know me, but you better know a little bit something about Universal Media, because it's all out there to see and to find and to research, right? It's an open book. And so if I'm saying what, and I directly hire department heads, executives, right? I don't hire their team.
Right.
But I may screen that, right? They may be enveloped in something, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to get you down to a pool of people that I think
Right.
are worth your face time, right? If I say, what are your expectations for salary? And it's a number, oof, there's no wiggle room in that. A range is much better.
Yeah.
A range is
Right.
much, much better. And then be prepared for the why. I'm obsessed with why. So say why?
Well, that's the know your value.
Exactly right.
What
How
are
are
you
you
bringing?
justifying that?
Right. I think it's easier if they're in the office and it's a person that's negotiating for a raise. I think it's easier because they get to see the culture at work. They get to connect with people rather than just being a lone wolf, at a home office and trying to figure out what exactly is my value. When everyone's in the office, you get a little better picture of what value you bring to a meeting or to a conversation or to a pitch meeting, you're a client call. You get to see, if it's one person consistently bringing the closing statistic or a piece of data, you can start to see, wow, that, I want to be like that person.
And I think that anyone in an entrepreneurial company, or really a company, if they have a fiscal conservative responsibility, is sitting there going, okay, well, we're going to buy a skill set. That's
Right.
the essence of work. Here's the skill set. Here's what we're willing to pay for
Right.
it. Are you willing to come on board and get paid that for your skill set? But where are you on the profit and loss ledger? Are you someone that's bringing in revenue, right? Or are you on the side that we have to reinvest to run the business?
Well, that's a really good point, because if you're not on the sales front, so say if you're in a corporation and you're legal or you're HR or you're accounting, you're not the revenue generators. So when you feel, they even more so have to know their value and what would happen to the company without them. Where are they strengthening the company or the business, by bringing their best knowledge to the workday.
I did, Annie, I did this research on this software, and if we engage in that, it's going to, diminish 40 hours of manual time.
Wow.
To do this. And then we're able to be more profitable, be more efficient, give raises, to retain all the talent as we grow them. And so, I let executives sort of tell me not where technology downsizes people. We need people.
Right.
It's how are we smarter, faster, more efficient, and how do we keep more of the money we earn to then reinvest in our people?
Right.
And so I think
that's a great mindset.
And Universal will do that and will tithe to the less fortunate.
Right.
There's still such a spirit of independence and family ownership that's so prideful to me.
Wow.
That I do feel like I'm going out, to your point, and working so hard and trying to earn more so that we can give them, the more disadvantaged than us, who need it more than we do, that leg up. And that's an important mission of ours. And I'm the first person to say that I've learned so much in 2 years about people and what it means to be a loyal employee and what it means to just, if casual makes you happy, if moms just want to get their kid on and off the bus, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Not that I wasn't before, but there's more flexibility.
Totally.
To understand
I think
that.
And you saw in action how we could make that work. And your child has an earache. Back in the day when we started, I clocked in at 8, and I took a half-hour lunch, and you better be back in your seat. It seems foolish now, looking back on that. But when you loosen that, and each employee knows the expectations, a little clearer when you're bringing them back and they're in the workplace and they know, you can say this is the deadline for this, project or this client work. But I think once they know they're going to fulfill that, I don't really, you can come into the office, You can work from home for all meetings. I like everybody in one place when that's possible. There's a sense of energy. Any pitch meeting, I can bring the team in on Zoom, but it's not the same. The passion and the energy in the room isn't to present our best idea and to close the deal. We need to be present to do that.
You need to be sustained and fulfilled and re-energized and reinvigorated. And my business vitamin today, Ann, is as
You've
a
said
leader,
a couple.
to know what you don't know. I don't know everything. But I do know if a mom gets a frantic call from school that their child was exposed, you have to come get them, then you have to do this and have to that. Like, there's no mom in the world in an office that's going to be able to be as nimble and flexible for their child.
Right.
And I think that we're not only prideful of that, I think we encourage that and want more of that independence to work when you want to work and make that a really important part of your life and a pillar of your family, right? So I know what I don't know, and I listen all the time to make what we're doing the most flexible and the most impactful without losing the essence of what makes us special.
No, well, you are special. Your team is special. I would say my business vitamin is find a place to work that provides meaningful employment, gives you a purpose to show up every day. And those cultures are out there. It didn't used to be as evident 30 years ago. Companies didn't really put that out in their annual reports or on their websites or company directories. And now it's pretty evident. That's one of the top 3 things employees are searching for. What does Universal Media believe in? Deeter Gallaher Group, we want as far removed from mediocre work as possible. We want to Google our work 20 years from now and be so proud of it, like we are today when we submitted it to the client. So that's the kind of employees we want to attract. That's the kind of clients like you. We're not for everybody, and that's perfectly fine, but we will stay up all night long to make sure that we're proud of the product we're delivering. And that's the kind of, and that is contagious, and it's best spread through an in-person environment, but it's good to be malleable and adjust.
Well, Deeter Gallaher Group has to be who they are because everyone else is taken.
Yes.
Thank goodness. So thank you, Ann.
Annie Carnathan, always a delight.
You're the best.
Until next time, take care. Thanks for listening. It's our desire that these stories will bring energy, ideas, and fresh thinking that you can use today. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram, and have a high gear day.